We've all had crazy nights at a bar, but I bet your crazy story can't beat these three true scary stories. From talking to a weird famous guy, to being trapped in the bar with a sex predator, to being in a bar with only one way out. Grab a blanket, turn off your lights for three true horrifying bar encounter stories. Bottoms up. Conversation in a bar. This story doesn't exactly feature a creepy individual, but the implications of the mentioned conversation certainly gives me chills. And it does also involve probably one of the creepiest men to have ever existed. So a few months ago, my mom and I were chatting and she told me a story about being in Scotland in the mid-80s with her then boyfriend. Can't remember if it was my dad or the bloke before him. They were in a bar and ended up chatting to this other group of people who turned out to be Paralympic athletes. One of them was a pretty famous dude. My mom also recalls that he was on the TV show This Is Your Life a week or so after this encounter. They got chatting and the bloke brought up Stoke Mandeville Hospital, which is a hospital that specializes in spinal injuries and problems. The man had been there due to his disability. My mom casually mentions that that's where Jimmy Savile does a lot of his charity work, to which the man replies, "He's not the man you think he is." Considering that we all know about Jimmy Savile, this really freaks me out. The knowledge that people knew way back then and were unable or unwilling to do anything about it particularly disturbs me. She was telling me about this while we were watching a documentary of the fallout from the Jimmy Savile case and the history of it. Edit. For those who don't know who Jimmy Savile is, trigger warning for rape, sexual assault. He's been pretty famous in the UK for years, the 60s and 70s. He was a TV presenter, entertainer, did a lot of charity work, presented Top of the Pops when it was still on. Anyways, he died a couple years ago. He was knighted and everything. People loved him. Last September, a TV show called Panorama did an investigation into him, and it came out that basically he was this massive sexual predator. Young kids, older kids, adults, male, female, the lot. There are as many as 450 complaints against him being investigated by a shit ton of police forces around the country. His gravestone was taken down. He's been stripped of several honors. And as a result, one of his nephews killed himself. It's basically unprecedented, the scale of abuse. He wasn't alone in it either. A few other celebrities have been questioned over it, and basically he was some sort of ringleader. You always hear about these pedophile sex rings on the news and think there was one going on in the world of entertainment. It's just harrowing. 6 decades. He got away with it for 6 decades. Anyways, if you want to find out more, you just have to Google him. His face, hairstyle, wardrobe alone should have made us realize. Shudder. Creepster at the bar escalates into a night of terror. After reading so many of these stories, I'm ready to share mine. First, some background. I was 22-year-old and a female at the time. It was the day after Valentine's Day, and I just found out the guy I was seeing was cheating on me. A coworker and I decided to grab some drinks at our favorite bar after work. We dropped my car off at home 5 minutes away, and she drove. We were having a great time, and this cute guy was sitting near us and seemed to be alone. Figuring how I was newly single, I figured I'd chat him up. He was nervous and seemed shy, and we invited him over to sit with us. He was a bit socially awkward, but seemed harmless. We got to talking about what we did for work. He told us he was a parole officer and also helped the local police at times. He had loosened up and seemed alright, so while my coworker wanted to leave, the guy said he could give me a ride home to my apartment. I was a bit uneasy, but I only did live around the corner and he did seem nice. So she left and we continued talking. All of a sudden, his face turned into what I can only describe as shit your pants scary, as he proceeded to tell me that I needed to be careful because there was a serial rapist they were looking for. Oh, okay, thanks, I said as I thought, well shit, I thought I'd certainly be safe with this shy, nervous, and socially awkward guy who doesn't seem to fit the job he just got done telling me he did, as he told me about some rapist on the loose, and with this shit your pants scary look on his face. So instead of listening to my alarm bells, I took him up on the ride home. I was too drunk to walk, and cell phones didn't exist, so I thought, okay, it's 5 minutes. We get to my apartment, and I get out of the car, and he asked if he can use my bathroom. I tell him no, my roommate is there, and I don't bring people she doesn't know into our home. He kept asking and getting irritated, and my alarm bells go off, and they were screaming at me to get the hell away from him. The front door to the complex is locked, and you have to be buzzed in or you're shit out of luck. I take my key and have it ready to go so I can quickly unlock the door. At this point, I decide to make a run for it, full on sprint mode. I caught him off guard and had a good head start on him as he began to chase me. I shoved the key into the door and slammed it shut behind me and booked it to the stairs as my life depended on it. I could hear him banging on the door as I got to the stairs. I ran all the way up 5 flights of stairs, ran into my apartment and locked the door, sat down and cried as my roommate stared at me in horror. I didn't leave my apartment for 4 days, and I realized he was likely the serial rapist he was talking about in his story. I've never gone in that bar again. The After Hours Bar. Okay, before you read this, just know that I know what my friend and I did in this story was stupid and irresponsible. I am well aware of what can happen to people when they don't think about consequences before acting. Anyways, my friend Dee and I were out one night at a club. She had driven, but at some point had become far too drunk to drive home. She ran into an old friend at the bar and he bought her a few too many shots. I took note of this and cut off my drinking fairly early, so I could be the driver. We stay at the club until close, and we're standing outside and Dee is having a cigarette. We are approached by a car with 2 guys in it. They look nice enough, around our age. They asked us if we wanted to go to the After Hours bar down the street. Before I can say no, Dee jumps in the car and says, "Yes, please, let's go." She is not normally the type of person to do something like this, at all. I think she was just really drunk and didn't want the night to end. So we're driving with these 2 guys, and they take us a few blocks up the street. They park in a residential neighborhood and tell us that we absolutely have to stop talking from this point on. We approach a house, and I already feel uneasy. The After Hours bar was behind what appeared to be a normal house door. There was a double door situation with a bouncer in between, checking IDs and membership cards. The bouncer allowed us to come in, even though only one of them had a membership. He said something on a walkie-talkie like, 2 girls, and I remember thinking that he was only letting us in because we were girls. Once inside, we took note of how odd the place was. There was no music playing and a lot of people talking. It was a very long place, with a door at the back, and the door we came through being the only exit. The guys go to the bar, and Dee tells me that she has to go to the bathroom. They tell us where to go. We find a staircase into a basement, a huge basement with a long hallway, surrounded by a chain-link fence and construction cones and such. At the end of the hallway, we see the creepiest bathrooms I'd ever encounter. We talked about how scary the place was, and how we just wanted to leave. Dee had a bad feeling about it, and so did I. We decided we'd just head out ASAP when we went back upstairs. We get back upstairs, and Dee heads straight towards the front door that we just came in at. She goes to push on it, and the bouncer in between pushes back and tells her we cannot exit that way. She freaks out. I calm her down and tell her it's okay. We can just go out the other door on the other side of the bar. As we turn to go to the other side of the long hallway, I noticed that we were literally the only girls there, and we weren't the only ones who noticed that. We began to get approached by some of the guys as we passed. We kind of just blew them off when the original 2 guys we came with stopped us and asked us where we were going. We told them we wanted to leave and headed for the back door before they could protest. We got to the door, which had an exit sign above it. I pushed on it first, it wouldn't budge. Then D tried as well, would not budge. We noticed there was a huge bar in front of it, and we were unable to push it so that it will open. At this point, one of the men at the bar approaches us and says, "Where do you girls think you're going?" I know that he probably meant it jokingly, but at the time, we were terrified and felt trapped. We told them that we just wanted to leave. At this point, Dee was crying because she was probably certain in her drunk brain that we were going to die. I tried to remain calm and explain to him that we tried going out the front exit and we weren't allowed. He told us that the front was the only way out and the back exit was locked. I looked at Dee and told her I didn't give a shit what that bouncer said and that he had to let us out the door. Luckily, I'm a fairly tall person, and while I'm not very big or muscular, I probably look stronger than my 90 pounds 5-foot friend. We headed back again past the guys and the bar, and a lot of people trying to talk to us, and we get back to the front door. I push on it and tell the guy he has to let us go. He sees my friend and immediately apologizes for not letting us out earlier. He says that he couldn't because he had people coming in. I told him that it was fucked up that the door in the back was locked and their bathrooms were creepy as fuck, and with that, me and her were off into the night. He asked us not to talk on the street, which we didn't, but we ran to the main road and started cracking up laughing at how we were 100% certain we were going to be raped and murdered by like 50 guys. Dee knew the area fairly well, and even though she was too drunk to walk completely straight, we made it back to her car about a half hour later. We got approached by another guy in a car on the way back, asking us if we needed a ride. Luckily this time, we said fuck no and he was on his way.